Good afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're doing well on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome to those who are joining us in Zoom, and also hello to those who are joining us on Facebook Live. If you are joining us on Facebook Live and you have any questions throughout today's presentation, you can go ahead and write them in the comments, and my colleague Maria Jose will be answering those. My name Yes, we are going to do the live transcription. One second. My name is Margaret Burke, and I am the advisor for EducationUSA Costa Rica. And we also have Maria Jose, who is my colleague, as I mentioned. She will be helping us as we talk about how to apply to graduate programs in the United States. So I'm going to open my PowerPoint, and we are going to put the subtitles on in Spanish. I do know that I sometimes speak a little quickly, so we'll have the subtitles on just in case. But the reason that we have the subtitles is also for those who want to read instead of listen. So we are the EducationUSA Costa Rica team. Today's presentation is being recorded on Facebook Live, EducationUSA Costa Rica. And we will see if we can do the live transcription. The issue, we're not going to do the live transcription because it covers the subtitles. So I'm going to turn that off really fast. So you will be able to see what I'm saying in the subtitles at the bottom, which are in Spanish, which is the same as the transcription. So you should be able to see what I'm saying just in case. This PowerPoint is for internal use only. So if you have if there's anything that you want to save for later, we recommend taking a picture, taking notes, or watching this PowerPoint again. But we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to talk about today. First, we like to start and explain what is EducationUSA? What is our program? EducationUSA is a global network of advising centers, and we are all funded by the U.S. Department of State, or in other words, we are funded by the U.S. government. And we offer up-to-date, unbiased information about accredited U.S. universities in the United States. And all of our resources are also free. We do not charge for our advising resources when we're guiding you through the process. EducationUSA is a program that exists around the world, not only in Costa Rica. We have more than 450 centers in more than 180 countries. For example, in Mexico, they have 26 EducationUSA centers. In Costa Rica, however, we have one center, and we are located in the Centro Cultural Costarricense Norteamericano in the San Pedro branch. So we are still working from home at the moment. So if you stop by the Centro Cultural, we may not be there. So please email us beforehand and we can try and coordinate something. But for now, we're offering virtual advising services. Okay. And before we get started, I always like to show this video, which is kind of the essence and the purpose of EducationUSA and what we are trying to help you do as you apply to study in the United States. So we're going to take a second to watch this video.
A United States education is your gateway
to a great American campus experience,
to study in a country of innovators and entrepreneurs,
to use your curiosity wisely,
to take on challenges,
to think differently,
to have endless opportunities,
to hear new perspectives,
to navigate cultural differences,
to pursue your passions,
to gain real-world experiences,
to learn skills for a changing job market,
to put theory into practice,
to become the kind of professional you want to be,
to thrive in your career,
to give back to your community and to the world,
to be the kind of person that you wouldn't have dreamed to be otherwise.
Come study.
Come study.
Come study.
Come study in the United States.
Very good. So now we always like to get to know our audience a little bit. And so if you're joining us in Zoom, you should see something on your screen, right? That says, let's continue. Oh, where did it go? Oh, sorry about that. It should say, where are you joining us from? So if you're joining us from the greater metropolitan area, from Guanacaste, Punta Arenas, Limón, or maybe you're joining us from Cartago, Heredia, San Jose, Alajuela, but not in the greater metropolitan area, like Perez León, for example. And we also want to know what type of program you would like to study. So would you like to study a master's, a doctoral degree, or maybe you haven't decided? If you're joining us on Facebook Live, please write your answers in the comments as well. All righty. So the majority of you are joining us from the greater metropolitan area, but we also have some representation from Punta Arenas, Limón, in different parts of Costa Rica, which is exciting. And a little more than half of you want to pursue a master's degree, right? But we do have some people that mentioned doctoral degree, and some people are not sure. And that's okay, because we are going to talk about the differences between a master's and a doctoral degree today. So a friendly reminder, if you have any questions, to please send your questions to my colleague, Maria Jose, who is, she's mentioned right now as Q&A, EducationUSA Costa Rica, and she will be collecting all of the questions to ask me at the end. So now we're going to go over some frequently asked questions that we commonly receive in our office. The first question, and the most popular, is if we are a scholarship program or if we offer scholarships. EducationUSA is not a scholarship program, and it is also not a financial aid program. EducationUSA is an advising program. We guide you and support you in the process of applying to accredited universities in the United States, but we cannot finance your studies. So we will guide you towards possibilities of finance, right? But we cannot guarantee it, and we cannot finance your studies ourselves, okay? Another question we commonly get is if there are opportunities to improve your English. If you are hoping to start in a master's or a doctoral degree, you do need to already have an advanced level of English. I say advanced, not intermediate, because these are graduate studies, and the universities are looking for you to be able to write, read, listen, speak, and even teach classes in English. So you do need to have an advanced level. However, if you have friends or family members that are interested in learning English in the United States in a university setting, there are universities that offer intensive English programs where the person can go and have the same university experience, but instead of taking biology or math classes, they'll take English classes, right? Another common question we get in the top right corner is if we offer short-term study abroad or internships. We do not offer short-term study abroad, but we focus on what universities offer. So academic programs to get a degree, right? A master's degree, a doctoral degree, a bachelor's degree, or the intensive English programs that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And finally, oftentimes people ask us what universities we work with. We actually work with all of the universities in the United States. We do not have a specific list of institutions, but rather we help you find the best university according to your professional, academic, and personal goals, okay? And now I'm gonna actually open up the chat so that everybody can write in the chat. Let's see if I can do that really fast. Nope. Here it is. And I would like you guys to share with us, why would you guys like to study in the United States? Okay, so please share in the chat with everyone in English. What are some reasons that you want to study in the US and not in another country? So for example, the area you want to study is not offered in Costa Rica, or there are more research opportunities in the United States, or you would like to practice your English for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years in the United States in an academic program. So please take the time to answer in the chat. Why do you want to study in the United States? So we're going to wait for some answers. Don't be shy. Why would you like to study in the United States? So we have some public and private answers. So I got a direct message that the area that they want to study is not very developed in Costa Rica. Okay. Someone else said they want to improve their English. They would like to have a new vision of the world and experiences. Very cool. Because your curriculum could have more weight. I think you mean there we're talking about our CV, right? Research opportunities in top-notch computer science programs. Very cool. Very good. These are all really good reasons. There's no correct or incorrect reason, right? We all have our different reasons for wanting to go to different countries. And I'm glad you all shared those with us. So we're going to go ahead and make the chat private again, but you can continue to send your reasons to both me and Maria Jose. So some of the popular reasons, which a lot of you mentioned, one is the quality of education. So we work with the accredited US universities and colleges. What does that mean? The university itself has to go through a very difficult process every 5, 10, 15 years to demonstrate that they are improving and constantly updating their curriculum, that the professors are quality professors, and that the students are graduating with the necessary skills to then find a job in the field, right? In Costa Rica, the universities accredit the area of study, the carrera, right? But in the United States, the entire institution is accredited. And thus that is showing you the quality of education that we offer at these institutions. Another reason that people would like to study in the United States is because a lot of universities offer unique areas or areas that are not always developed in other countries in Central and Latin America, like biomedical engineering, animation, film, human computer interaction, right? User experience design. And we also have a lot of different options in terms of universities. In the United States, we have 4,700 universities. I repeat, 4,700 universities. Whereas in other countries in Central and Latin America, normally you have 100 to 200 universities in the countries, right? So we have lots of options in terms of large institutions, small institutions, public, private, religious, not religious. So you will most definitely find at least one university, if not many, that have all of the things that you're looking for in an institution. Another reason that people oftentimes want to study in the United States is because it's something that will change your life. You will return to Costa Rica bilingual, bicultural, which is different, and probably with international work experience, right? While you are studying in the United States, you can work up to 20 hours per week on campus. Okay, but after you graduate, you can also apply to extend your visa through the OPT program. It means optional practical training. And this program allows you to work legally for up to 1 year in your area of study in the United States. So for example, let's say you get a master's in engineering and then you apply to extend your visa with this program. You could then apply to work for an engineering company for up to a year legally and make money, right? And last but not least, we have a lot of flexibility in our educational system in the United States. So especially at the bachelor's level, which is not the case for you all, right? You have flexibility in changing what you want to study in your second or third year. You can also change institutions if you're not really happy. At the master's and graduate level, there's flexibility in the fact that you can pursue a master's degree or PhD in an area that is a little bit different to what you actually got your bachelor's in, or very different. You're not required to stay in that area for the rest of your academic career. And I always like to kind of explain the educational system in the US since it is different, right? Here in Costa Rica, high school normally is 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. Or if you're in a technical high school, it's a little different. But in the United States, our high school is always 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And then after high school, most people try to pursue a bachelor's degree, which is a 4-year degree. There's a couple different options for that, but since we're going to focus on graduate studies today, we're going to continue. After your bachelor's degree, you will notice that in the United States, we do not have a licenciatura, right? There's no licenciatura. After your bachelor's, you can apply to a master's, or you can apply directly to a PhD in many situations, a doctoral degree, right? And this is because many doctoral degrees will not require that you have a master's, and you can apply directly from your bachelor's if you are sure that you want a doctoral degree. Some programs may ask that you first get the master's, right? But it allows for a little bit more flexibility. And as you can see, a master's is a shorter degree. It's 1 to 2, maybe 3 years, and a PhD can be 4, 5, 6 years, depending on how long it takes you to finalize your thesis, okay? I also like to go over what our services are, because I think after we mentioned the frequently asked questions and we mentioned that we're not a scholarship program, some people kind of are confused as to what we do, right? We help you in the 5 steps to studying at U.S. universities and colleges. So step 1 is researching your options and finding programs where you will be happy, where you will work with professors you're interested in working with, right? Step 2, we're going to talk about how you could finance your studies, right? We know that the education in the United States has an elevated cost for many, and so a lot of people are looking for financial aid to help them. Step 3 is the longest step, and step 3 will explain to you where and when and how you need to take your standardized exams, like a TOEFL or a GRE. We'll explain who you should be asking your letters of recommendation from, how you should ask for your letters of recommendation, how you should contact professors at the universities in the United States, right? And we can help revise your essays as well, so that you turn in really strong essays. After you have applied, if you are admitted to the universities, then we explain how you're going to apply for your student visa. The student visa is the F1 visa. We cannot guarantee that you will be given the visa, but we will explain the process as clearly as possible and make sure you're prepared for your interview appointment so that hopefully you do indeed get the visa. And finally, the last step is preparing for your departure. In June and July of every year, we have an event where we explain how the health system works in the United States, what are free resources available on your university campus, academic culture, cultural differences, so that you're prepared for this new journey. And remember that all of our services are completely free. The first step is researching your options, because as I mentioned, we have more than 4,000 universities in the United States, and you should be applying to 4 to 8 universities. So we need to make the list a little bit smaller. So the one thing here I wanted to kind of emphasize is that you need to find an institution that will make you happy academically, financially, and personally, right? Yes, you are there to study, and you will be studying and researching the majority of your time, but you also will have free time, and we hope that you'll be happy in that environment, right? You need to define your priorities as well. Oftentimes, students come to us and only have super elite competitive universities on their list, Ivy League institutions, and the name is not the entire thing, right? You need to focus on the environment, the professors you'll be working with, the classes you'll be taking, the financial aid they can offer you. We have lots and lots and lots of options that you should consider. And this research process is not something that will happen in 1 week or 2 weeks or even a month. Honestly, the research process will take a long time. Normally, we recommend that you're researching from January to March, like very intensively, but you'll continue to research universities for the rest of the year until November and December when you apply, right? And now, we're going to talk about the differences between a master's and a doctoral degree, because I know that's kind of an area of confusion for many. So first of all, the master's degree is normally 1, 2, or 3 years long, depending on if it's part-time or full-time. As an international student, you are required to study full-time, okay? So you have to study full-time. We have academic and professional master's degrees. So an academic degree would be like a master's of science in engineering or a master's of science in communications, right? Whereas the professional degrees are specific to one profession, like business for an MBA, okay? We also have doctoral degrees, which are longer degrees, and here's the difference. Most individuals that want to study a master's degree are studying the degree because they would like to acquire skills, techniques, and abilities to be able to work in the industry once they graduate, Okay. A doctoral degree prepares you to do research for the rest of your life. You are more focused on research. And in the United States, if you want to be a university professor, you have to have a doctoral degree. So many times a doctoral degree will mean that you will become a university professor and do research and study. But there's also ways for you to use a doctoral degree working in other areas, but this is the general difference. Okay. So what you need to ask yourself is, one, do I like to research? Because, for example, I do not like to research, so I know that a PhD will not be in my future. And two, kind of where you see yourself in the next 3, 4, or 5 years, because a PhD is something that takes multiple years. It'll take you 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 years to complete. Okay. And now Maria Jose is going to kind of explain how you guys should be looking for these institutions in an organized manner.
Yes, as Mo said, there are many different options of institutions in the United States. So it's super important to have a very organized way to look for your options. So we have like some tips like the petersons.com and the grads.com options that are like a search. You can do like a general search in the internet, but also there's like an option of doing a LinkedIn research, but it's not to contact directly with your professor or with the professor that you are interested in. It's like to look up at where they study or where they are working at right now, so you can apply to those institutions or investigate those institutions, not directly contact them like, hi, I'm interested, but doing like a little research on them. And also there is like a document we have for you to look up different options or different information about each institution, like where is it located, if it's a very big institution or if you prefer a smaller one, what kind of financial aid options they have for international students. So it's very important that you have all this in mind when you do the investigation, like the institution and also the professor.
Very good. Thank you, Maria Jose. Yes. So as she mentioned, it's great to kind of use these general Google search engines like Peterson's and grad schools. But another method that students have tried is sometimes they kind of get stuck and they feel like they have only found 10 or 20 institutions. So what we suggest is they look at the professors that they want to work with at these institutions and look to see where those professors studied, because you might find other programs in the same area that you had not thought of or known about before, right? Step 2, how will we pay for this? Which is for many the most important question, okay? So 1, you need to start your financial planning as soon as possible. And when I say this, I'm talking about the application process. Applying to master's and doctoral degrees in the United States can be expensive because you have to pay for many different things, which we're going to see. And we also want you to think about the cost of living when you're considering institutions. So for example, many times we have students that are drawn to California because it's a beautiful climate. It's similar to Costa Rica, right? But something to keep in mind is that California has one of the highest cost of living. Your rent will be 2 or 3 times as much as your rent would be in Ohio or Michigan, okay? And you want to start saving now, because although we do have many students who are able to get full funding for master's and PhD programs, there are still a lot of things you need to pay for in the first 2 months, like a deposit on your apartment or buying furniture. So we definitely recommend to start saving up as soon as you can. Okay. As I mentioned, the application process itself can have its own costs. So each university is going to charge you an application fee, which can be from $35 to $250. You might have to pay to get the documents from your institution, like UCR or Tech or UNA. You have to get them translated as well. In some cases, the university might ask you to send the grades to them in the mail. So there's UPS or DHL. Sometimes institutions will ask for an additional evaluation, which is called a credential evaluation, which we will talk about in a second. You also have to consider the cost of your English test and your GRE, if you are going to take the GRE. And sometimes students like to pay for courses to prepare for these exams, right? So the application process itself can cost anywhere from $250 to $600 or $700, depending on how many institutions you're applying to, okay? Then if you live in the US and you're studying, these are some examples of what it would cost every year. But I'm going to mention and warn you that this is very different based on each institution, okay? So I have seen a master's program at a public university that's $45,000 a year, and then a PhD in a private university that's almost $90,000 a year. So this will vary greatly, but we just kind of wanted to give you an example, okay? Now, how can you fund your graduate studies in the United States? If you are Costa Rican, you could apply to programs like Fulbright, which we'll see in a second is a program offered by the US Embassy, or you need to get your financial aid directly from the universities in the United States, because unfortunately we have not identified any scholarship programs in Costa Rica, like from the government or from the private sector. So your two options would be to apply for the funding through the US Embassy through Fulbright, or get the funding directly from the US university or institution. Now, if you have US citizenship, if you are a dual citizen, then you can apply to something that is called Fafsa, which is kind of a help from the US government to take out loans, okay? And if you have another nationality, for example, maybe you're Mexican or Venezuelan, we recommend that you also reach out to the Education USA office in that country, because sometimes different countries have different agreements with universities in the United States that would potentially offer you a discount, okay? But the most common type of funding at the graduate level are called assistantships, which are very similar to the Assistantships that we have here in public universities, okay? There are three types. One, a teaching assistantship, where you would essentially be teaching a basic introductory course to the bachelor's students, right? So for example, if you're getting your PhD in chemistry, they will ask you to teach chemistry 1 to the bachelor students, okay? Since you'll be teaching, you do need to demonstrate advanced English and hopefully have teaching or tutoring experiences, okay? They can also be in other departments. For example, I have a friend who is studying a master's in teaching English, but she is doing a teaching assistantship to teach Spanish classes, and that is how she is funding her master's degree, okay? Another type is called a research assistantship, where you will be doing research and supporting professors and their research, and hopefully get some publications along the way. And this will contribute to your research, your thesis. If you're going to do a thesis for your master's, or if you're in the PhD, you will have to do a thesis. The last type is called a graduate assistantship, which I think is very similar to the Assistancias in the public universities, where it's essentially a job, like an administrative job. Maybe you're working as a secretary, maybe you're working as a department coordinator, right? And for your work as a teacher, researcher, or graduate assistant, the university can pay for your classes. Sometimes they give you a monthly stipend for you to pay for rent and food, and sometimes they even pay your health insurance, okay? If you are interested in a research assistantship, so you're interested in a program that's more academic, you do need to communicate with the professors before you apply. The professors need to have heard your name and learned a little bit about you before you apply. You should be reading their research articles, following them on Twitter, knowing what they're up to, and you need to reach out and email them and express your interest to work with them and see if they have any open positions in their program for the following year, okay? Now, what does an assistantship cover? Because there are three types of assistantships. One, we have partial assistantships, which this is something you need to keep in mind, because sometimes university websites will mention assistantships, but they will not mention a lot of explicit information about how much, okay? So for example, some universities mention assistantships, but they're partial assistantships, meaning that they may offer to pay for a few credits, maybe one class, and maybe they're gonna give you a stipend of $2,000 or $3,000 a semester, which is not enough for you to live, right? So in this case, you would need to complement the assistantship with your own money, or with your parents' money, or something along those lines, okay? We also have almost full assistantships, And normally this will completely cover your classes, which is called a tuition waiver, a full tuition waiver, meaning you do not have to pay for classes, and a monthly stipend that is normally enough to pay for rent, food, and personal items. However, in many cases, the student is still responsible to pay for the fees, los cobros administrativos, which could be anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a year. And sometimes they may have to pay for a little bit of health insurance. So this is why I say it's almost full, because it's essentially a 97% financial offer, but there's a little bit that you may have to pay for. And so an example is my friend and colleague who is studying at a public university that costs $45,000 a year. Her assistantship covers $42,000 a year. So the university wanted her to have $3,000 in savings. She did not have to pay the $3,000 to the university right away, but they wanted to see that she had a little bit of money for emergencies. Okay. The third type we have are super full assistantships, like super generous, right? And in some cases, if the university is really interested in you and really wants you to go there, they're going to offer you a full tuition waiver, so completely paid for classes, a very generous monthly stipend, right? And even most of or all of your health insurance. But this really depends on the program, the program's budget, and how strong of a profile you have. So here, guys, the most important thing is that when you're looking at universities and trying to see the possibilities of finance, like financial offers, if they do not give explicit information, you should reach out and email someone in the department and ask them, what do your assistantships cover? Are they full tuition waivers? Is it a full tuition waiver and a stipend, or is it partial funding, right? So that you have that information before you apply. There are different patterns and trends that we see. For example, there's more funding available for a doctoral degree than a master's degree, and there's more funding available for academic programs like engineering, math, computer science, than there are for professional programs like business, okay? And going along with what I just said, there is more funding available for those who are interested in STEM. However, that does not mean that it's impossible for those who are studying humanities, right? I have helped people get it full funding for linguistics, sociology, different humanity areas. However, business and law, those areas are very difficult to find funding, and most of the time individuals will have to pay for their own education, which sometimes can mean taking out loans, okay? Now I'll mention the only scholarship program that we have heard of in Costa Rica, which is called the Fulbright Program. The Fulbright Program is from the US government, and in Costa Rica, it is managed by the US Embassy, okay? The Fulbright Scholarship will pay for 2 years of funding. So this could be a 2-year master's, or they'll pay for 2 of your 4 years of a Ph.D. They look for very strong candidates. This is a very competitive program, right? And you are required to come back to Costa Rica after you finish your studies and live here for at least 2 years, because the idea is that you'll come back and bring all of your knowledge and experience to better Costa Rica, right? The application is open right now, and it closes at the end of April. You do have to already have your bachelor's degree completed when you apply, okay? Another rule is that you must be a Costa Rican citizen or permanent resident. If you are not, then you can contact the embassy in your country to see if that country also offers Fulbright, right? You must have completed a bachelor's degree. You must have a high English level. When you apply to Fulbright, you're not required to take the TOEFL at the beginning, but you can turn in like a TOEIC exam or another English test to prove that you have advanced English. You also cannot have studied at a US university under US government scholarships before, right? And there are areas of preference, for example, English teaching, computer science, education, but that does not mean that you cannot apply if you have something different. So there have been Fulbright students that are studying political science and different areas, okay? So if you are interested in the Fulbright, look at the information on the US Embassy's page. Maria Jose is also sending a link. It's a really great program. It is competitive. The application is open until April. I recommend you get started now. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the application itself. What do you need to apply to a master's or PhD in the United States? you actually need a lot of things, which is why it takes 12 to 18 months to apply to these programs. So for example, if you guys are starting right now, then you could be applying at the end of 2022 to hopefully start your studies in 2023, right? But if you say, Mo, I want to start in 2022 in August, I'm going to say it's a little late. Most programs have already closed their applications, and it would be very difficult for you to get everything together in this short of a time period. Okay, so now we're going to look at each part by part. And Maria Jose is going to cover this part first.
Okay, yes. It's important for you to know that the application process in the United States, it's different than here. Here, we just, well, in the graduate level, we just pay for the exam and then wait a lot of time. But here in the United States, there are different applications formed for each university and for each program, okay? So it's important for you to know that you cannot use the same form for each university you want to apply, because you have to look for each form of each university and apply like in a individualist way. And also there are different amounts that you will be charged. So sometimes you may pay like $100 or $150. It depends on the university, it depends on the program. Also, you can ask for application fee waivers. So that would mean like you cannot pay or you can get a discount, but it's important to know when you are investigating the institutions, how much is the application fee for each institution and each program, because it can be different from each of them.
Very good. Thank you. Which is again why it's important to start saving up for the application process. Maybe, $40, $50 a month to prepare so that it's not one big hit to your savings when you apply later on. Now, transcripts. You will see this word on all websites, and transcripts refer to your grades from your bachelor's degree. So when you apply to a master's or PhD, you're required to send them all of your grades from all of the universities you have studied at, okay? A lot of people say, well, I started a degree in nutrition and then I changed. Do I need to send them my grades from? Yes, you have to send them all of your grades from all of your universities, from all of your carreras, right? Because that is how our US education system works. The grades need to be admitted from the university with the signatures and certifications. So you cannot simply download them from your portal estudiantil de la UCR, but you have to get the actual expediente académico signed by the dean or the vicerrectoría of the UCR. And it has to have the grading scale on the back where it tells you like, okay, 0 to 10, 7 is passing, I means incomplete, R means retirado. We need that information as well, okay? You will also often see the word for official translations, and this means that basically you cannot translate them, your friends cannot translate them, I cannot translate them. The only people that can make official translations or do official translations in Costa Rica are the translators that are certified by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or La Casa Amarilla. They have a list of different translators you can contact. They all offer very similar prices, right? And you do need to get them all translated and certified. This is not something that can happen in one day, so I recommend that you don't wait. It's something that you should do sooner than later, okay? Now, I mentioned something called a credential evaluation before. Some universities, not all, some universities will ask that in addition to sending your grades, you also have to send an official evaluation of your degree, where the company essentially will determine what is the Costa Rican degree equivalent to in the United States, okay? And unfortunately, this extra requirement will mean that you need to pay more money because you need to pay the company, you need to pay to send the grades, right? So this is something that when you're doing your research and you're taking notes on the Excel that Maria Jose mentioned, you need to see if they require just the grades and translations or if they also require the credential evaluation, because you might need an extra month to get this done, okay? And a credential evaluation is simply a document like this, where it kind of explains what country you studied in, what kind of degree it was, when you graduated, if it's accredited, not accredited, and what it's equivalent to in the US. And they also kind of change your grades to the US system, okay? But again, not all programs will require this. You also are going to be required to turn in an essay at each institution, which could be a personal statement, a statement of purpose, or a study objective. These are all different. These are different. So, because I have had students who come to me and they turn in an essay and they say, and I say, okay, is this a personal statement or a statement of purpose? And they say both. And I say, no, that's not a thing. They're very different, right? And we have some resources. Last year, I actually did a webinar on the difference between what does a personal statement look like? What does the statement of purpose look like? What do each type of documents have? And Maria Jose is sending you the link in the chat now so you can watch it, okay? All of these will be a little bit different for each university as well. So if you're applying to 7 institutions, you're going to have 7 different essays, and each one of those essays should have multiple drafts. You're going to need to start writing these things in May or June of this year so that you're not, staying up all night in November. You also have to turn in a resume or a CV. Again, these are different. A resume is a short 1-page document normally used for jobs or business areas. A CV is a long document that explains everything you have done in your academic career in terms of classes, publications, conferences. It's much different. And again, we did a really good webinar about the difference of these 2 documents that Maria Jose is going to send you. In some cases, you may be asked to turn in a portfolio. For example, if you're applying to architecture, creative writing, if you're applying to some kind of language, they're going to ask for a writing sample to see how you are writing in English, right? But not all programs will ask for this. You also will need to turn in letters of recommendation from your professors or current employers. Most institutions for a master's and doctoral degree ask for 2 or 3. They must be completed in English. You are not allowed to see them. So again, you cannot translate them. So hopefully you have professors that speak English. And if you don't, then you will need to invest and pay the $30 to get the letter translated. But it's worth it, because if that professor really knows you well and can really write a quality letter, it's totally worth paying the $30 for this letter recommendation that could potentially help you get in to the program of your dreams. Okay. And the professors have to send them the letters directly. You will not ever receive the letter or send the letter. The professor writes the letter and sends it to the university. Okay. Now, Maria Jose is going to talk about the English test, because we have different options, and they are all great options and with different kinds of qualifications.
Okay, as we are from Costa Rica and here we speak Spanish, we will always need to do an English test, because as Mo say, they have to know if we have the English level required for the classes. So there are different options, but not every institution accept every option. So it's important that when you are doing the investigation of the universities, that you look up to what kind of exams they accept. So we have the IELTS, the TOEFL IBT, and the Duolingo. The Duolingo is not accepted in every university. So if you are thinking of this one because it's kind of cheaper, it's important for you to be sure that it will work for you in case you apply. The IELTS and the TOEFL IBT are expensive, more expensive, but they are more commonly to be accepted to every university. So it's important for you to check that first to prepare, because the IELTS and the TOEFL IBT are long exams with different parts like reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So it's not just like going and doing it, because it has different parts, and each part has a different grade. So at the end, each part of it counts. So it's important for you to investigate the options that your university or the university that you're interested at is accepting, and preparing for your exam, and having the dates that you can do it and the date that you have to send the scores to the institution.
Very good. Yes. So as Maria Jose said, each institution will have different requirements, but there are some exams that are more popularly accepted. If you're hoping to get a teaching assistantship as your funding, you do need to get a high speaking score, because you'll be speaking English as you teach your class, right? So it's important to also write that down as you're looking for different master's and PhD programs as to what is their minimum TOEFL score or IELTS score or Duolingo score that they're looking for. As in addition to the TOEFL, you may be required to take other standardized tests like the GRE or the GMAT. However, a lot of programs are now GRE optional, which means that it is up to you if you would like to take it and send your scores, right? These are exams that are difficult and require that you spend multiple months preparing. And that is another thing that you should be writing down in your Excel. Does this institution require GRE? If they do, what kind of scores are they looking for? Or do they not require the GRE, for example? Now, after you guys have applied and hopefully gotten accepted and hopefully gotten an assistantship or a fellowship, right, you're going to have to apply for your student visa. And unfortunately, again, we need you to start saving up ahead of time because the student visa has different costs. This will start in May or June after you have applied. So for example, if you turn in your application November, December, we will probably start the visa process in May or June of the next year, okay? You do need to show that you have enough money to pay for 1 year of school. But if you receive funding from the university, they will take this into account, right? So the example I showed you before, if the university is $45,000 a year, but your teaching assistantship covers $42,000, you will only have to show $3,000 in a bank account, okay? There are different parts to the student visa. For example, you will need to pay a one-time fee to join SEVIS, which is $350. SEVIS is an online system used to track international students and ensure that they are up to date on all legal situations regarding their student status. You will also have to pay for the visa appointment. Right now, this is $160, and we hope that it will continue to be, but there is some discussion that they may increase it in the coming year. And then in Costa Rica specifically, if your student visa is approved, you do now have to pay an approval fee, which is an additional $68. So the student visa is almost $580. So again, another thing for you to budget for May or June of next year. And step 5, preparing for your departure. We do recommend that you visit all of your doctors in Costa Rica and make sure you're up to date on vaccinations. You know, go to the dentist, go to your regular doctor, go to your gynecologist. You'll also notice that it's cheaper for you to go to the doctor here, so you can take advantage of that and be up to date and super healthy. If you take any medication, we recommend that you bring at least 6 months of medication with you, because when you get to the US, you will have to find a new doctor who will have to prescribe you, which is recetas, right, to give you this new medication in the US. You want to purchase your flight and make sure you get there with a couple days or weeks for you to prepare and get things ready. Legally, you can enter the United States up to 30 days before classes start, right? So you also can't go like 4 months beforehand, but you can go up to 30 days before you get there. And we definitely recommend you come to our pre-departure orientation. We always invite students that are studying in the US to talk about their own experiences, to suggest what kind of phone plans you can get, where to look for an apartment, all of the things that you kind of want to know before you get there. And now the calendar, because I know a lot of people are visual like me. They kind of want to have an idea of what they should be doing. So this is an example calendar, and it will depend on each person, but this is for someone who wants to start their master's or PhD studies in 2023. Okay, so from January to March, you should be very intensely looking for programs and schools, filling out that Excel, reading the research of the professors, and you should also create a calendar of when you hope to take your tests and start to kind of make a, an Excel of how much you want to budget each month. From March to June, you're going to continue to look for these programs, but you're going to register for and study for these standardized tests. From June to August, you should be studying and taking the standardized tests in these months. You should also start to write your first drafts of your essays and your first drafts of your resume, and continue to research your schools more in depth, right? Go to webinars, start to email professors, which is where we come from August to October. Email the professors you're interested in working with. You will get some answers sometime, and sometimes they'll not answer, right? Continue to work on these different essays. And this is where you need to start requesting your different grades, letters of recommendation, so that you have time to get everything certified and translated. In October and November, you're essentially focusing on perfecting those essays and getting everything ready, because the ideal time to turn everything in is November. The earlier you turn it in, the better. We have seen differences. When students turn it in early, they oftentimes are receiving their results faster, and many times these results are positive results, right? From December to January, you need to check your email because you may be invited to an interview. Interviews are becoming more popular now that the GRE is optional, because the institutions want to get to know you in a different way, right? Normally the interviews are virtual. And from February to April, you will start to receive your letters of acceptance or rejection. And at the graduate level, you have to make a decision by April 15th, okay? And then from May to August, you start the process of the student visa. You start to make sure that you have a bank account that will work in the United States. You prepare for, buy a plane ticket where you're going to get your COVID-19 test, and you come to our pre-departure orientation. And your classes will start in August or September, depending on if your institution uses semesters or quarters. Okay, so as you can see, it is truly an 18-month process that requires a lot of perseverance and dedication. Okay, but it is worth it. I wanted to share these success stories for those of you who are still with us. I know it's a long webinar. Pablo is a student that we helped in 2020. He is a current first-year PhD student in biomedical engineering at Duke. We helped him with a lot of essay revision. Same goes for Mariela, who's getting her master's in human resources at the University of Minnesota. And then Milagro is what she goes by. She's getting her PhD in sociology at Colorado State. So these are students that came to us, that paid for their application processes, that, looked for us for guide, support, advice, and they did it. And they're doing it. They're in the US right now. So we're super proud of them. And we hope that we'll see some of your faces on the success stories in the next few years. Now I want to open for questions, because I know you've been sending your questions to Maria Jose. And while she asks me questions, I kind of just want to put this information for you guys to look at. If you don't already follow us on Facebook or Instagram, definitely follow us to receive information about our future webinars, Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives. Yes, Maria Jose, tell me.
Okay, we have some questions. The first one is, if a family member has an F1 visa, it's more difficult for me to pursue a scholarship in the US if I have an F2 visa.
Well, an F2 visa is someone who's a dependent of a student. So you are going to accompany them, essentially acompañarlos. If you want to study as well, then you would need to change it to and kind of open your own case for studying, but your immigration status in that sense should not affect your admission status as to whether or not you'll get in.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, where can I get the credential evaluation?
There is a list of about 12 to 15 different options where if you want to reach out to our email and ask for that link, I can send you the link. That's another thing you want to keep in mind, is that some institutions will ask for a specific kind. So some institutions will say, you can get any credential evaluation. And then other institutions will say, no, we want a credential evaluation from this specific company. So that's something else to keep in mind, so that you're not paying for multiple evaluations.
Okay, thank you. What's the difference between getting into college on a spring or fall? Are there different admission dates?
Yes. So the US universities and colleges normally start in fall, which is August or September, and they end in May. However, another semester starts in January, which is called spring. Some universities will offer admission dates for fall and for spring, but what you need to be careful is you need to, when you're looking at this option, you need to ask them if they will have the same financial opportunities for the students in spring, because sometimes the universities have calendars for their budgets. So they'll say, okay, we have this much budget starting in August, right? And so if you're applying to start in January, maybe the budget opportunities are different. So that's just something you need to keep in mind. And yes, they have different application deadlines as well.
Okay. When I'm applying, do I have different possibilities of getting in based on the degree I want?
Yes, I think that also happens here in Costa Rica. There are some areas that have a more difficult acceptance rate, right, than others, but it's a holistic evaluation. So it's not just the degree that you want, but it's also your academic background, your extracurriculars, if you have teaching experience, if you have research experience. So there's lots of different factors that will determine whether or not you get in.
Okay, thank you. And the last question we have is, if I once had the J1 visa and had paid the service fee, do I have to pay it again?
You do. The service fee is for each time that you go to the US on an academic visa. So that service was for J1, and now the service will be for your F1 as well. But it's a very good question.
Okay, and we have the last one. I'm sorry,
It's okay.
got it. It's possible to get a scholarship and also an assistantship.
Normally it's one or the other. To be very honest with you all, scholarships is not a word used for a master's or a PhD. Normally students get assistantships, which are essentially like jobs that then help them pay for their studies, right? And fellowships, which is basically like the master's or PhD version of a scholarship. It's funding given to really, really competitive, really outstanding students. So I have not seen a student that gets, both. The only thing I can think of is that we had a student, she got an assistantship, and then she received like a small $1,000 additional scholarship for being from Central America. But that was a very unique case. It's not something we've seen often, and it was a very small amount. Obviously, $1,000 is great. It's $1,000, but it wasn't, $10,000, $15,000.
Okay, thank you.
The last thing that I would like to talk about is opportunity funds for those of you who are still with us. We mentioned at the beginning that Education USA is not a scholarship program, and this is true 98% of the time, but we do have one special program. And before I talk about this, after today's session, if you would like an individual appointment to talk about your essays, your programs, you send us an email, educationusa@centrocultural.cr. You mention your name, you mention that you came to this charla, you mention what you want to study, and you also mention when you're available. So you could say, I'm free Tuesdays and Thursdays after 3. And we will contact you to offer you an appointment. But anyway, back to opportunity funds. Opportunity funds is the only scholarship that we offer in Education USA, and it's actually a scholarship that's funded by the US government. And what it does is it gives the opportunity to really outstanding students from low economic backgrounds the chance to apply to colleges and universities in the United States with the hope that they'll get a full scholarship from the university. Okay, so basically, as I mentioned, this only covers the application process. This is not a scholarship to cover while they're in the US, but rather we help pay for preparation courses for the TOEFL or the GRE. We pay for the TOEFL or GRE, we pay for the translations, anything they need to apply to the universities in the United States. And if they get in to a US university or college and receive full funding, then we help them pay for all of the things to get their visa and to get there, like the passport, visa, airfare, and a little bit of money to help them get settled when they're there. This scholarship does not cover tuition, does not cover anything while they're in the United States. And we cannot guarantee that the students will get full scholarships. We help them, we push them, we do everything we can to help them, but there's no guarantee. Because getting full funding is really difficult in US universities and colleges, we look for students with outstanding profiles. They have to have super great grades. They have to have an advanced level of English. They have to have evidence of leadership and volunteering, extracurricular activities, and they have to come from a low socioeconomic background as well, right? We have had success stories in the past. So for example, Isaac graduated from the Colegio Científico de Pérez Celedón, and he was in our program and got into Tufts University, which is in Boston, with a full scholarship to get his bachelor's in engineering. And Francisco graduated from the University of Costa Rica. He is in Princeton University and getting a PhD in aerospace and mechanical engineering with full funding as well. And last year we had 4 students get into PhD programs, and they all got full funding. So they're studying PhD in microbiology, a PhD in linguistics, a PhD in chemistry, and they all have full funding. So this program opens every year in August. You have to be in your last year of high school or your last year of bachelor's or already graduated. And follow us on Facebook or Instagram so that you can find more information about opportunity funds when we open the applications. And again, if you want an appointment with us, send us an email, mention you came to this webinar, and we'll be happy to meet you and get to know you and help you in this process. We have some great webinars coming up in February and March. For example, in March, we're going to have an event for El Día Internacional de la Mujer on March 8th about TICAS and STEM. If you're inspired, definitely come to that. And we're also going to be planning another event with some graduate students, kind of, things I wish I knew about applying to graduate school. And so those are all events we'll publish on Facebook and Instagram. Again, this is on Facebook Live to watch again. It was a lot of information, and thank you so much for being with us today. We hope you learned a lot. Have a wonderful night.